Well, welcome back to the Choosing Known podcast. I'm Laura-Catherine Etheridge.
And I'm Frikkie Grovelar.
And we are very glad to be back with every one of you. So we're in our Luke journey. We have a story I think we're both very excited to unpack today.
Yeah.
It's a really neat story.
It is. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It has so many layers. I don't know if we can even touch all of them, but it's hopefully we'll do some digging and just see how good God really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be the hope, because it's like, I agree with you. This one, you could just go a long time in this story. There's a lot. Where should we start?
Yeah, I think it might be good to read the story, and then we can go from there. I think it might be good just to recognize the fact that this story comes right on the heels of one of the teachings of Jesus. So Luke lays it out for us, and he gives us the lesson on loving your enemies, not judging others, a tree and its fruit, and then the building your house on the rock. And so straight after he gives us this lesson on making sure your house is built on the rock and not the sand, because storms will come, and they do, that the house on the rock stands. And it's just beautiful to actually, with that lesson in mind, just carry that into the story of seeing what this centurion's life was built on. And he's not a Jew. He's not like what we would consider a believer even, and yet I think he is. He's got a very deep faith. In fact, Jesus says, I have never seen faith like this, So I think that's it's good just to go into it knowing the context. But let's read it. It's Luke chapter 7. It runs from verse 1 through verse 10. After he, Jesus, had finished all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. And when the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, he is worthy to have you do this for him, for he has loved our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue. And Jesus went with them. And when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore, I do not presume to come to you, but say the word and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. Yeah. Powerful.
Very powerful. And I'm looking at it thinking there's so many pieces that could be unpacked here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, you hear Jewish men come, Jewish leaders, and they bring his resume. I don't think he had asked them to say that.
Yeah.
I think he might have have asked them the favor, do you think you could reach out to Jesus? I'm not a Jew. He even says in the story, I felt it presumptuous even just coming to you. So I didn't want to overstep. But they bring his resume. So these men of great reputation bring a great resume, and they present it to Jesus. And what I love about Jesus is his responsiveness to this request. And Jesus begins to make his way towards the centurion's house. And then the friends of the centurion are the next wave that say, hey, listen, this is where he's really at. Yeah. He doesn't need you to come to believe that you'll do this. He doesn't want to be presumptuous, and you need to be here for me to see it happen, But I'm a man under authority. I understand authority. And I know you have authority. You have authority over sickness. You have authority in this situation. All you have to do is just speak the word, And of course, Jesus, I believe, does speak the word, but marvels at his faith. That is the bedrock, the foundation of this man's life. He lives in that world. He's come to understand that. And it's different for different people. It's fundamentally the same thing. It's trust in Jesus. I think sometimes we have faith in our faith.
Yeah.
If we do the right thing, say the right thing, believe the right thing, we can that's our resume. That will get Jesus to me to do what I need him to do. Even him sending his friends can be misread as good move. He has a powerful man, but he's coming across humble. You don't need to come in my house. It's just for my servant. I mean, even that is like, he's a compassionate man. He's got this heart for a servant of his. And so Jesus sees through all of that. And we've got to be careful that we're not fooling ourselves by coming either with the resume that the Jewish leaders carried or our winsome words. It's the bedrock that stands before God and that Jesus so admires. So this actually reminds me of another story that Luke does not recall, but it's the story of the Gentile woman, and Mark and Matthew both tell the story where she comes on behalf of a child. And so she's not a Jew. And her opening words were, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the one gospel writer says Jesus ignored her. And the other gospel writer, I don't remember whether it was Mark or Matthew, said the disciples began to implore him to do something about her cries. So it's becoming really uncomfortable. Jesus of Nazareth, have mercy on me, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus seems to be almost dismissive. He just ignores her. And so when he finally addresses her at the disciples' sort of plea, he says these words, and they seem so cold. He says, healing is for the children. It's the children's bread. In other words, I'm sent firstly to Israel, And I think the problem was, I don't think Jesus was racist in any way, but she was coming with a pretense of being Jewish. She was using the right words, the right greeting, the right prayer. She had the right scripture. But her faith was in her performance like our faith can be in our faith,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't hit the bedrock yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, so Jesus says, the bread is for the children. And she basically blurts out, she drops the facade and she bursts out and says, but even the puppies get to eat the breadcrumbs that fall from the table. And ironically, the Gentiles were seen as dogs,
Yeah.
and vice versa. You know, the Gentiles saw the Jews as dogs. And it immediately catches Jesus' attention. And even when I say that, it's not as if he was oblivious of something and then suddenly, oh, okay, no.
No, yeah.
He is aware of so much. But as he waits for that moment when she comes as she is with what she has. And it's not pretty words. It can't compare with Jesus, Son of David. It's like even the dogs get crumbs. You know, it's not how pretty you pray.
No.
It's your heart cry. Lord.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and of course, her child is healed. So I think to me that is what is so beautiful about this walk of faith is in fact we're called to be vulnerable, and we're called to the bedrock of where we're at, and Jesus meets us right there, you know. I think it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredibly beautiful, and his desire, it makes me think of that other passage that says, don't think you're going to be heard because of your many words. You know, it's like, because we can so often think it is our faith, or there's a formula or a recipe, or if I do enough of these things, that's going to move God, and it becomes really quite transactional.
Yes.
And he doesn't desire that for us, because that's not who he is, and it's also not for our good. There's a lot of work still involved in that form of believing that I have to do all these things because God doesn't want to help me. It's like the view of who he is not accurate. It's not right. Why do you think it takes us so long to get there? Because I'm sitting here and I'm pondering this story and I'm listening, but I keep thinking about like how long it really takes to get to that point in our lives where we learn to come to him just really raw.
Yeah. That's such a probing question. I think we're scared of what the bedrock like is. I think we're afraid of who we really are at a gut level. Like we're afraid that people will love us. Even the people who we think love us, we're afraid to be truly known. How much more, like, you know, I mean, I can understand my family wanting to love me, but really, God really loved me at a bedrock level. I mean, the stakes are really high. They're eternal, you know. I think we're just afraid of that rawness and that bedrock. And it isn't impressive, you know. We don't do that on Facebook. We don't put it in our resumes. Why would I want to, you know, have people really see that, and even God, if I'm honest, you know. We have some weird ideas about God. I think that.
Oh yeah.
I think we have the right words and the cognitive. We can ascend to some of the doctrines in theory, but when it comes to receiving that love and being that vulnerable in our souls, I think it's a completely different story. You know, I mean, I look at my own life and my inability to just receive stuff I don't think I deserve. And just when beauty and love, generosity just comes my way, um,
Mm.
this may sound a little funny, but I was in the mountains a few months ago, and I may have mentioned this before, but I was just going on a walk. I'm doing a lot more walking recently, just coming to terms with the fact that Jesus moved at 3 miles an hour.
Mm.
Why is 55 miles an hour not enough for me?
Mm.
But and I was just walking, and my mind went to the image of where Jesus was walking with his disciples on the road. And I just had this, I think sometimes some of the pictures of the Chosen series come to mind. And it was like Jesus was walking up in front of us, and he looked back at me and kind of did, come walk with me. And I immediately looked at one of the other people. This is all in my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he saw the interaction, and my impulse was, no, you go,
Mm.
and I pondered that. It was just a glimpse in my own mind, almost in the subterranean. But why would I do that? Even at an invitation from Jesus to come, I'm ready to go. They probably need it more.
Mm.
They probably deserve it more. What is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've been on my walks, because sometimes I walk to work. It takes me an hour. I will go through that imagery again.
Mm.
And just like imagine Jesus looking back and me going, yes,
Mm-hmm.
just pushing against this impulse of surely I've got to bring more than the bedrock of my
Mm-hmm.
raw,
Mm-hmm.
unfiltered life to him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an incredible thought process, because now I'm putting you on the spot like really fast. It's making me also think about early in Genesis, where it talks about before the fall that both with people and with the Lord they were naked and without shame.
Yeah.
And then we see that same pattern in Ruth when we get to this progression of the relationship she has with the kinsman redeemer, and in the end she is naked and without shame. It's
Yes.
this full connectedness, and it's making me think about how Jesus is inviting. We see this with this story of the centurion, then this woman that comes, but it's like he often has to help us work through the shame.
Yeah.
To come with that transparent vulnerability.
Yeah.
And we're fighting against that many times in our own life. It's like, I can't come that real and that raw.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing in front of people. It's embarrassing in front of the Lord. And yet he's working to get us back to that kind of relationship with him.
Yeah.
But there is so much shame. And so there's a great book. I'm going to forget what it's, Shame. I'm going to forget the name of the book, but they talk about sometimes we try to connect ourselves to things that's actually a form of shame. Who do I know? My resume, like in this story, in this case, they were sharing his resume. What have I done? Who do I know? What am I connected with? What are my accomplishments? What are my treasures that I can use? My nationality, the story of the woman, all these things.
Yeah.
And yet really being naked and without shame is releasing all of those and truly coming and going, I actually have nothing.
Yeah.
And you have everything, Father. And I'm coming to you because of who you are and what you want to do for me. Me coming naked and without shame is exactly what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, what has been really challenging in the last couple of years for me is like I think I'm coming to God naked and unashamed, or maybe naked with some shame, but I know that if I pray and he forgives me, I know he will if I confess my sin or whatever. But I think instead of just sort of measuring the wind like,
Mm-hmm.
like this, what if, and this is the question I've been asking myself, what if my capacity in human relationships, in terms of vulnerability and honesty,
Mm-hmm.
what if I'm never going to go beyond that with my relationship with God? You know what I mean? It's this very real way of measuring,
Yes. Like to see the level of vulnerability that I would have with a person that I can see
Right,
as a way of measuring really how open and honest am I being with God
right,
who I cannot see.
right. And I think
Yes.
Jesus almost said that. He said, how can you
Yes.
love,
Yes.
say you love God who
Y-
you can't see, when
Yeah.
you can't love the people you can see?
Mm-hmm.
And I realize, I'm not vulnerable with everyone, and there are degrees of that. And
Sure.
Jesus, even in the gospel, says at times he wouldn't entrust himself
Mm-hmm.
to people because he knew what was in their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So he was guarded. Jesus knew
Mm-hmm.
what man was,
Mm-hmm.
and he was. But the same fears that I have in my marriage and in the handful of close friends that I have, I can assume I'm bringing that
Oh,
into, you know what I mean?
oh yeah, no, that's an incredible
And that makes it
awareness.
really real.
Yeah, well, because in those instances, you're describing relationships that are pretty whole and safe.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, and change me if I'm saying this and you would say, no, I would say it this way, but it's almost like in the safe relationships where
Right.
I can bring
Yeah.
myself forward and be more in that place of naked and without
Yeah.
shame, when I'm still hiding, covering,
Right.
pulling back, never entering in,
Yeah.
then those things I can assume likely are also in my walk with the Lord. And
Absolutely.
I could not agree with you more,
Yeah.
because it's a wonderful barometer to help us see
Yeah.
what am I potentially casting upon the Lord. I think that's one thing
Right.
that's helped me a lot too in becoming more aware of like styles and types, and for myself and in the work that I do, is realizing one of the biggest reasons I want to learn about that is because that is the very image that I am casting without realizing it upon who God is.
Yeah.
And he needs to, there's that passage, help me get that log out of my eye,
Right.
because I am not only going to cast that on others, I'm going to cast that on who he is.
Right.
And that is not who he is. And that, I think that's part of why Jesus marveled at this man's faith,
Yeah.
because he was so accurately stating who he was, the centurion.
Oh, I
Here's
love
who I
that.
am. Here's where I am. I'm able to recognize where I am, and here's who you are, and here's where you are. And yet it's like so many reasons it's profound faith, because even in that recognition and being so naked and honest about who he was and how undeserving he was,
Yeah.
because he says, I didn't even presume.
Yeah.
I didn't even presume. But
Yeah.
but he's so honest, and yet because he knows who God is,
Yeah.
the request went out. It's
Yeah.
because of who God is that the
Yes.
request went out.
It's almost like I'm seeing this, and in some ways I am for the first time, just what you said. The connection between his self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like I am a man under authority, and I know how this is how it works
Mm-hmm.
for me. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And here I bring, meet me, who I am and where I'm at,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're connected, but I think we disconnect it. We don't even know the condition of our own soul. We're too scared to look. We're so used to playing pretend. And then we, as you say, project it on God, and we have a
Yes.
pretend God, really,
Yeah, we do.
you know.
Well, and we don't really realize, and this is like, we'd have to be careful how we think of this, but one thing that I've realized is I have a pretend God, and in a way I have an idol God.
Yeah.
Like it's not the true one true God. This
Yeah.
is actually like a version of
Yes.
my own making presumption, and the Father thankfully continually is working to help us see him for who he is,
Yes.
because we're going to then know ourselves.
Yeah.
We can't know ourselves without knowing who he is.
Right.
But yeah, he continues to work at that. But yeah, we have this picture of God.
Yeah.
And it strikes me too in this story and in the story that you were mentioning with the woman that comes to Jesus. They're both asking on behalf of someone else.
Yeah.
So it's very intriguing that the need is actually not their own. They're not dying.
Yeah.
It's someone that they care very much about, and how that prompts in us when we have a need like that. It prompts all that stuff that we try to put up there to be, God, here's the reasons why, everything I can bring to get you to help and love this person.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like we see in the Old Testament a lot, they would bring all these gifts.
All right.
You know, if they wanted a king to do something, or they would bring all these gifts, extravagant gifts. And yet the Father is just, it's like, no.
Yeah.
You know, that's not, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to tap on something that you said. I think there is a danger in making God an idol.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of it, idols demand sacrifice.
Yes.
And if you get the right amount and the right sacrifice, that idol is indebted to you, to, that God, that mini God. And God does not work that way. And you can get an idol, you can make an idol of God that looks pretty good. And you've got scriptures for it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how God works. He will not enter a transactional relationship with us. I think back and this is a rabbit trail, but in Genesis, when he makes the covenant with Abraham, the Abrahamic covenant, which is kind of one of the foundations that we stand on, and as we build our way to Christ, Abraham is put asleep. God puts him into a deep sleep. And he sees what God does through a vision. He prepares all the animals that are split in two. And a covenant basically is, may it be done to me what has been done to these animals if this covenant is broken between us. And then he puts Abraham to sleep. And he makes all the promises. And Abraham wakes up afterwards and realizes what's happened, I mean, God takes all the liability on himself. And it does cost him his life. He is split in two on the cross, for us. So God is not an idol that we bargain with.
And how freeing.
Oh, man.
How freeing, because if I think I need to bring all those things, and the reason God, I mean, if God was to answer those prayers with that internal belief system that most of the time we don't even realize we have. But if he was to do that, then that confirms that theology, if we just use a big church word. It confirms that theology that if you really want to move the hand of God, the way that you move the hand of God is you have got to take all this work, these things that you've worked to create, and you have to bring those to me in order to get me to, and that is not who he is.
Right.
And he will not enter into that. And I'm forgetting which of the prophets it is where the story is about the person that he's using the example, and he's saying, I found you in a field and you were covered in blood and you were naked and you had nothing, and you were going to die. And I took you from that place, which was naked and in shame. I took you from that place, and here's what I have done. And I forget which one. I'll put that in our show notes.
I think it's Isaiah says that.
And it's like, but really that's the maximum understanding of who he is, when we realize because of who he is, he He needs me to bring nothing.
Yeah.
He loves me so much, there's no need for me to bring it. He
Yeah.
doesn't want me to bring it.
Yeah.
He doesn't want me to bring it because of what that says about me, because of what that's implying about him.
Yeah.
He wants me to leave all of that aside and to come because of who he is.
Yeah.
I need nothing. I can be
Yeah.
completely naked and in that passage
Yeah.
in shame, but he's going to meet me there, and that's what we see, and that's why Jesus just marvels, I think, at this man's faith. He's like,
Yeah.
he gets it,
Yeah.
and how Jesus is moved.
Mm.
So it's so freeing.
Yeah. It is. I think for me, one of the most recent moments like this for me was, so as a pastor, in raising kids and starting churches and everything, I had one of my children just walk away from, just get deeply hurt, and we won't go into the details, but walk away from the church and then from God, you know. And when I look back over the 5 years of that journey, which has now changed again, and God is doing an incredible restoration. But when I look back at my process, like I sent emissaries, I sent messengers with my resume, you know, I did all the prayers, the podcasts, everything. And I got to the point after almost 5 years of just heartbreak and feeling absolutely broken and going through the guilt and the self-loathing and of what did I do wrong? Why is she doing wrong? You know, my daughter, and why this and why. And the irony of it is, in that journey, people would try to encourage my wife and I, and they would say things like, "We just want you to know you are amazing parents." And I know they meant well, but they were pointing me back to the foundation that was falling apart. It was my ability to parent, you know.
Yeah.
And even using scriptures like, you know, raise a child in the way that they should go and they'll never depart from it, which isn't a promise. It's a truism, but it's not a guarantee, you know. And so we were being pointed back, people were trying to help us. And I thank God for concerned people, but I needed a deeper foundation. And I got to the point where I just, through years and months of just weeping, really, my bottom line prayer, all my prayers were reduced to one. And it went something like this: Lord, if you would just speak to her, that is enough for me. If you would just speak to her. And ironically, when she called and said, Dad, Mom, I started going back to church. And we had been alienated, like we got off social media for years. We didn't want to go on there. You know, I just felt that little still small voice again saying, remember what you prayed? I'm going to do the talking.
Oh, wow.
You just keep quiet and enjoy the ride, you know. And slowly she began to open her life and began to speak. And I still would hear things that were terrifying. And I was so tempted to, you know, jump in. And the Lord would just remind me, hey, you asked me to speak. I'm speaking, and I'm going to be doing the talking here. You just enjoy the ride, you know. And that to me was one of these bedrock moments where, you know, the woman cried out, Lord, even the dogs get to eat crumbs, you know. Just say the word. You just say the word, you know. And although I would never wish that experience on anybody, and I never would want to go through that experience again, I thank God for that. experience. Because when I stand in church and people start singing about the faithfulness of God, I have tasted that. I have touched that,
It's experiential knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I still have my moments. I mean, I
Mm.
have wonderful adult kids, and one phone call from any one of them can just send me on a, what happened,
Mm.
people often say, you're only doing as well as, your most struggling kid, that's, but getting back to the whole leaning into parenting, I began to realize that God actually never called us to raise godly kids. He called us to be godly parents. Only God can make a godly kid.
Yeah. To do the heart.
Yeah.
Only God can really do that in the heart.
And that doesn't release you from responsibility. It
Yeah.
actually helps you focus on what you're really responsible for, which is your own life before God and how you live that out vulnerably and openly before them, bring the facades down, and obviously at age appropriate levels,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But certainly when your kids are hitting 16, 17, 18, and we're still talking about Father Christmas and whatever, the Father Christmas in the sky type thing, we're in trouble, and they don't see any bedrock lifestyle between you and God. We have a problem. They can smell authenticity. Kids are not, they sharp, Anyway, that was a rabbit trail, but
a really, really rich one.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm thinking about all the people that may listen to this, watch this. We started with this story, and then we kind of started because I took us into this question about what do you think makes that so hard? You've walked through, you're just sharing a story.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about times I've walked through, really pleading with God about something that was very important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just almost thinking unless there's other pieces you'd want to share, maybe we wrap with if somebody finds themselves in that place right now, an unmet desire of some form, something they want for someone else in their life, in your case with a child, we were talking earlier about, for me, some unmet desires in life that have been long, long journeys. But what would we say that might encourage somebody in that place? What to do? I'm just kind of chewing on that because I think almost everybody has that experience.
Yes.
But what maybe helped us through that journey?
Yeah. Great question. Your questions are always so good. So in both of these stories, in the centurion story, you have the Jewish leaders that go ahead, and then you have his friends. In the other story, which we didn't read, this isn't happening in isolation. The disciples are actually going, Jesus, aren't you going to do something about this? There are people in the picture. I think just for me, my first stab at an answer to your question would be, I think the biggest challenge we face is isolation. It's Jesus and me. We have this incredible relationship. It's God and me. And then I've got to deal with people and the issues of life and the fact that the world is broken. And so we live with this disparity. And the sacred and the secular are so horribly detached. When I think in the ordinariness of our lives and the everyday, God is everywhere to be found. He's right in the mess. So I would encourage our viewers and friends, don't embark on this journey alone.
Yeah,
you're not going to get to the bedrock with just you and God. You are going to deceive yourself. I always say this to people, my nose is one of the most predominant things in my face. I mean, I have a pointy nose. It sits right in the middle of my face, but I can't see it. I need a mirror. I need authentic relationships, and I need scripture and open-heartedness, and I would say a combination of both. I have spent in really dark times just me and my Bible, and I've begun to hide behind and run from authentic relationships.
Mm.
And you know what? This gets empty. It gets rout. I get arrogant. I remember times where, just be completely honest with you, pastoring a church. I've pastored a few, but there was this one situation where I was just going into a very dark place.
Mm.
I was isolated.
Mm.
And I would, whenever there was an issue in the church or I had to have a conversation with someone, if someone came to me, I wasn't comfortable with it, I would begin to pull out scriptures and I'd begin to, and people would back off because I was the pastor and I'm not going to argue with the Bible. And it wasn't combative, it was winsome. But I would be
distancing. Yes.
And I was hiding behind the Bible.
Yes.
And I was going into a deeper and deeper hole in depression and anxiety. You know what I'm saying? So we can use all of these good things. So I think getting back to your question, you're not going to go further with God than you can go with the closest people in your life. And there doesn't have to be 15, 20 people. I think most of us can only handle 3 to 5, When I look at Jesus, he had 3 people that were really close to him. And then there were the 12. Sometimes there were 7 and I'm always amazed at Jesus. He, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he took them all and then he said, you guys stay, but you 3 come a little further with me. And then he gets to a point where he goes, no, you 3 stay there. I'm going to go by myself. I always would wonder what the other 9 would do when the same 3 tended to be chosen. Even Jesus had these layers of relationships. And then there were the 70 that went out.
Yes.
And did these things and rejoiced. So, but do we have the 1, 2, 3? And I would say for men, don't just say my wife is my best friend. I don't need.
Yeah.
I think if you were honest with if your wife was honest with you, and it would probably work the other way around, she would say, no, I would love you to have a couple of really good, strong male friends, that love Jesus more than you, And so I know I'm kind of once again following rabbit trails, but even as a single person, the couple of single adult people that I know in my life that are really close to me, and I'm talking late 20s and early 30s, I look at some of their relationships and they are far richer than a lot of married couples I know, because I get a real close look into that marriage, I have the privilege of that, and I don't want to be judgmental here, but so it doesn't have to do with marriage or not married, but I think key relationships where you can be vulnerable and honest and open. Let me just say this as well. I feel like accountability has been a word we've thrown around the church, and it's real awkward, and it's almost like this policing kind of thing. Accountability is a gift you give yourself. And the people that you're in relationship with should not have to do the hard work of trying to find out what is really happening in your soul.
Yeah, no. Not especially the close ones.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I like all of what you're saying. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And I'm thinking in those relationships too, where we're coming in and we really are choosing to be open and vulnerable,
Yeah.
choosing to be real in those handful of really close relationships. They're also the people that are often positioned the best to help us see what are those layers that I am maybe putting between me and God,
Yes.
which is so powerful, because a lot of times they really, like the example of the nose, like they can see things
Yeah.
that for us there's so much going on mentally and emotionally and spiritually and even physically sometimes.
Yeah.
There's just so much noise that sometimes it's just such a gift when you have somebody like that you choose to be open with,
Yeah.
when they're just able to say, Laura-Catherine, I think you're looking at God in this way, and that's
Yeah.
not accurate.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing him in this way that's not,
Yeah.
it's not who he is, and here's who he is. And like
Yeah.
their ability to meet us as a relationship in a human form is so impactful and touching and healing,
Yeah.
because they are like physically there, and that's powerful. But then I think too, when friends, whether we're that friend in this season or we have a friend, we're trying to think of who would I go open up to, like who are those people that
Right.
you could just say, hey, you're hearing all this, what do you think maybe I'm casting on God, what do you think I'm
Yeah.
seeing? And for them to help point that out can really open up another layer of just
Yeah.
getting to that place like you did with that prayer for your daughter of like, I mean,
Yeah.
it just was reduced down to that one
Yeah.
real and raw sentence. And sometimes our friends are what help us get to that point with God.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think doing it alone it's not the plan of God. That's not the plan of God. It's the opposite of what God has
Yeah.
for us.
And let me throw this out there as well. Um, I will sometimes use, and this isn't original, I pick it up from all over the place, and sometimes I copy and paste and mix and match. So I don't think I have an original bone in my body in terms of ideas. Well, maybe, I don't know. But, when I love David's life, King David, because I love the Psalms so much. And I always trace back the Psalms to what was happening in his life at the time. And with concordances and online, tools, it's not hard to do at all. But, when I look at David's life, I see his friendships, if you can call them that, in sort of three categories. So he has a Jonathan, who is, Saul's son. Jonathan is the son of a king, and David is the servant of the king. But they forged this incredibly deep friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And David actually says this relationship is different to the love of a woman.
Yes. Yes. But
But
like super intimate.
very,
Yes.
very.
Yes.
And then he has, I don't know if it was Joab or Abner, because I get mixed up with who Saul's sort of head of the army was and who David's ended up being. But we have these peers who have the same mission and passion. They're not necessarily that depth of a soul friend.
Joab.
Joab.
Yeah.
We have our Joabs who go to war with us.
Yeah.
And we're in the trenches. That is a very authentic and beautiful relationship that particularly men need, And then there's the Samuel, who's the sort of the father sage who drops in and out of David's life. He can't be a Jonathan. There isn't that like soulmate feeling. And Samuel's not in trenches. He's not doing what young men do, right? But I think our challenge is when we're looking for that one person who encapsulates all three of those. That person doesn't exist. And then we try to exercise control when oftentimes God brings those people into our lives And sometimes it's just for a season,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll use someone else. But I think for me, the three categories,
Yeah, that helps a lot.
it does.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to make a Samuel a Jonathan, or I'm expecting a Jonathan to be in the trenches with me and love all the things I love, you know, and I'm expecting the guys who are in the trenches with me to kind of love these soul talks. And you know, I think trying to just be open to different kinds of relationships
Mm-hmm.
that have the same core
Mm-hmm.
of valuing Christ,
Mm-hmm.
honoring each other,
Mm-hmm.
being secure in themselves.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I think there's some of those dynamics that I think are important when we talk about community. I'm not just talking about small group on Wednesday, Bible study on Thursday, and church on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about very deep, authentic,
Right.
relating,
Yeah.
and some of it very much on a one-on-one level.
Right.
Yeah.
And hopefully they kind of come from those, you know, church on Sunday Bibles, but not necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was so wanting you to share this. I was going to ask you a few minutes ago. It was something I was like, I need to ask him, even though this is going longer. And then you're sharing it. And there was a piece when you shared this with me a number of months ago that you mentioned that I think is worth mentioning too. And you were talking about how when one of those went away, I'm just keep it high level.
Yes.
One of those key relationships in the case of David, when that one went away, Jonathan, there was deterioration in other parts of his life and relationships in a very, very significant and pricely way.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's really stuck with me, that example, because I think it's so, and I think you'd said, you know, it's kind of like you put it in a square and you've got these relationships around that. But I think they're different voices, they're different perspectives, and they help keep all of our other relationships in a much healthier place. And when one or some of those aren't really there, then
we feel it.
Yes, and we may be trying to get out of another relationship something that really that relationship was not meant to have.
Yeah. And I think as I age, the challenge for me is you know, I've noticed I've got young people who are being drawn to me, young families, and I'm thinking, why? I'm not cool. I'm losing my hair. I'm old. I'm like, what? You're cool. You know how everything works. And so if I in any way try to sort of start competing or entering their world, it becomes so silly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so I guess what I'm talking about is you might be called to be one of those for someone else.
Yes, that might be.
Where you're reciprocating. You can't volunteer it or impose it on anyone. It comes by invitation, not imposition.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get those roles mixed up for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. If God has called you as a Samuel type into someone's life, don't start arm wrestling them like a Joab would, you know. Or you know, you have different roles that God will call you to, and especially when your kids grow up and they begin to invite you in, or you know, whether it's in your church or whatever. I think just be aware of that. It's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if we're in we're the place where we're looking for those, allowing somebody to not need to be everything to you.
Yeah.
I find that a lot, even in the corporate world, people talk about having a mentor, finding a mentor. And many times just very practically, they're going to grow the fastest when they can decouple some of what they want to learn and not try to put it all in one person. That puts a lot of pressure on one person who probably is not going to be able to really add the value that they might want to add, but they're just, how can you be all those things? But when they'll decouple that and begin to look at who might help teach me about communication, or who would be really good to help me learn more about relating to people well, or who could help me with how I present things.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden we often will begin to see names and I, you know, kind of ideas in our head of, ooh, this person they're good at that. They're good at this.
Yeah.
And here we're surrounded by all these people who could be mentors and teachers, but we don't see them
Yeah.
when we're trying to clump it all as one. So, yeah. Shall we wrap there? Any other
Sure.
thoughts? Okay. And I know we could go and go. It's very rich. Thank you always. And thank you all for being with us today. There's a lot I know we've just covered here with this story, and then just practically what helps us relate with God that way, and relationships, how do we relate more authentically with people? And then here, just practically at the end, as Frikkie and I've talked about, really looking at, what might help you to be more that way with the Lord and engaging other people in that process. So lots of food for thought. And my encouragement would be, don't try to do it all or apply it all. Maybe think about what's the one thing that stands out to you the most, and what do you sense the Lord's maybe quickening in your heart. This podcast will live here. You can come back to it if there's other things, but a lot of times if we'll pick the one thing and we'll take a step on that, that's many times where we're going to feel the greatest growth, and the Lord's going to really meet us there. So we encourage you as you step into whatever that might be for you today in this month. Hope you have a great next few weeks, and we look forward to being back with you next time.
God bless you.